All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Profit Matters Live, where every week we talk about your business and your money and all that fun sort of stuff. Ashley, it's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Is that a new chair? I feel like it's a new chair. Maybe sometimes you blur your background, sometimes you don't. So maybe sometimes I just don't know.
I know. It's not a new chair. We'll go no background today.
I love that.
Yeah.
Very nice. It looks like you shot an albino cardboard deer at one point in the past, and you've got that mounted on your wall back there. I have a moose right outside of my office. It's a checkered moose. But, well, this is, listen, I think the market conditions are changing. Everything is new every single day. Nobody really has a clue what the hell's going on. But we're here to talk about money. And I think today's topic is so relevant because it's one of these things that there's a lot of risk, particularly in the construction business. Many people know years ago, I helped to create a company called Build Proof that actually held money in escrow between a contractor and a homeowner and had a third-party validation where an inspector would come out that was a third party that made the final decision on when the money got moved back and forth. And, we unfortunately launched that right before the crash of 2007, 2008. But let's talk a little bit about liens today, because you mentioned something that you just dealt with in the construction world, and it made me very uncomfortable when I said, oh boy, let's have a deeper conversation about this. So let's talk about what are construction liens and how do they work and why do we need them? And then what are the nuances that you just mentioned to me that just scared the crap out of me?
Yeah. What I'm seeing is construction liens are changing. We're having to pay things that we used to not because vendors are really wanting to get paid. They're not waiting for us to pay when paid. So we'll start there. What happens is most general contractors, most subcontractors pay when paid. So we're always in the rears on getting paid, right? We always have money that's owed to us. We're always being the bank. The further
wait, let me just clarify that. So you as a subcontractor don't get payment until the general contractor gets paid.
That's right. So the general contractor gets paid and then I get paid. And then what used to happen is then I pay my vendors because this below the sub is the vendor, right? So yep. I rent a backhoe and it gets delivered to the job. I'm not going to pay my bill for the backhoe until I get paid. So there's this process and it takes so many days because think about it. You submit a pay application, then the GC submits a pay application, then the owner submits the pay application to the bank, and then you have to bank draw. So we're usually the bank for like 90 to 120 days, and it only gets longer as you go down like levels and you kind of peel the onion back. But then it's affecting your cash flow because you're paying for this construction job to get built and you're waiting on money, which used to not be so bad. Okay, I rented the backhoe, it's out here, I'm not paying it, so I'm not out of pocket except for labor, but I'm always out of pocket for my labor. Right. So that really sucks because labor is a huge portion of the job on these construction.
Oh, yeah.
But now what's happening is equipment guy is saying you can't wait until you're paid to pay me. And you go, well, I really don't want to lose my lien rights. But he says, if you don't pay me today, you won't get the backhoe you need delivered on the next job.
Okay. So what are lien rights?
So lien rights are your ability to file a lien on the property so they can't close on it. And I guess I was going to say the cool thing, but the good thing for a subcontractor or a general contractor, especially the general contractor wants to close the job out and get the certificate of occupancy. You can't do that. That means so they can open the hospital or open the Goodwill or open, whatever it is.
So all the vendors are paid, right? That protects everybody in the equation.
Yep. And so what happens is once you pay your debts, you lose your lien rights. And so I can't own a property that's completely paid up by me because I've lost all my lien rights. I've already paid everything that needs to be paid. I can't say I can't pay these people because I didn't get paid because you did pay them already. Doesn't matter that you haven't been paid. And so it's so convoluted. But what's happening when I pay for the tractor delivered to one job, before I got paid, because I need a tractor on the next job, all I'm trying to do is keep the workflow going. So I had this great idea today. This is my nugget.
Okay. All right. Let's do it.
Normally, I'm looking at something at Profit Matters. We do something called AR versus AP. It's so silly. You have to do it manually in a spreadsheet, but it shows all my vendor names and it shows what's my outstanding AP. And then it shows when my payments get received. So I know I've got pay application number 4. Let's pay everything before this date, right? So let's pay everything on pay application number 4. So I'll normally not pay all of my bills until I get paid. But what if you had one vendor that you could save your lien rights with, right? And so instead of saying I can't pay these 20 people, and those 20 people aren't giving you, in the case I was talking about yesterday, you can't get concrete on site. You're trying to pour $1 million worth of concrete and you can't get concrete because you didn't pay for the last job. I guarantee you're going to pay your concrete bill because you can't keep working. Like your business totally shuts down. It's insane. So you start paying everything. But what if you kept lien rights with just one vendor on each project? And you could rotate which vendor that is to not slow up your materials, but also to not tie up cash flow. You have to be real strategic how you're going to do it on which project should be part of your cash flow forecasting, should be where you lose your lien rights.
So is there any legally, is it just a single vendor that you don't have to pay? Do you know this? Like, or is it, if this goes to court, right? How is this going to get looked at if you've paid all your vendors, but the guy who brings the bottled water to the site, right? I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm wondering if we could get an attorney on the next call.
Totally.
Construction attorney in Dallas who's absolutely off the charts great. And I'm not sure if he would show his face or put his name on here, but maybe we could ask him to be on our next podcast and we could get into some of the legality part of lien rights. I'll reach out today.
Yeah, please do. I think that would be a really cool, because I think it's going to be, listen, what happened in 2008, and for those of us that are old enough to remember 2008, and I worked in the construction industry at the time because we had this company that managed the money between the contractor and the homeowner. And what we saw happen was a lot of contractors that just shut the doors. Their cash flow dried up. They didn't have new projects coming in, so they couldn't finish the old projects. That's why lien rights are in place, right? So that contractors are supposed to be maintaining a reserve. And that's why you have things like, what do you call it in construction, hold back?
Retainage.
Let's talk about retainage too, because this all really plays into place. Retainage is in place and lien rights are in place to make sure that if I pay a general contractor to do the work and he hires subs, that everybody gets paid and that nobody can come back and sue me in the end. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about retainage for a few minutes, because that's another aspect of this whole equation that's a protection. But to my point earlier, in 2008, what you started to see happen was deals that didn't have retainage, and general contractors are just closed up and were like, just sue the people. I remember working at Build Proof at the time and people were calling and they were like, I can't get a hold of my general contractor. And I just got a notification from my drywall guy. He's suing me, but I paid for that. I have an invoice that showed I paid for it. Yeah, but he didn't pay the sub, so you're liable now for it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what? So let's talk about retainage.
You know what? You just said something before we talk about retainage.
All right, let's do it.
It just made me think about this. So this is the number one way that people get in trouble is when I get paid for one job and I pay the bills for another job.
Oh, yeah. Can't do that.
That is illegal. Like, it is illegal to use money from one job to pay for another job. Like, you actually have to account for those things separately. And, you think you're in good shape and everything's fine. But if you were to run into a problem where you run out of money and you have to shut down, like, you're looking at like some serious, that's like white collar crime right there.
Yeah.
Like, you're in real trouble. And I think there was even a point where I didn't realize like what the level of trouble was when you use one job's money to pay for another, but that is serious. And then
I just to that point, my first time being an executive in a publicly traded company, and I had to sign the financial statements at the end of the quarter, the Qs and the Ks, and I had to read the statement, and I was like, "Wait, seriously? Like, this thing pretty much lines out that says, if anything in here is in the least bit inaccurate, I promise I will go to prison for this and I won't fight it." And it's like, whoa, what? You're literally signing your life away. So please continue.
It's crazy. But going into retainage quickly is
retainage.
affecting your cash flow. And I think where GCs got in trouble, especially in 2008.
Say that again. You broke up for a second. Retainage affects your cash flow.
Retainage affects your cash flow big time, because we look at construction on the whole. Most of these construction companies are making, let's say, 3 to 5% on the bottom line as a sub, 1 to 3% as a GC. I think that that's very common. But what's happening for a sub is when retainage is 10% and they were going to make 5% on the bottom line, they're 5% in the red all the time because they're taking on bigger projects, their revenue's growing, their business is growing, so they're living on lines of credit, and it's a tough business to be in. So you have to figure out.
Money is not as cheap today as it was just yesterday, right? Because rates went up another, 3/4 of a basis point. I mean, rates are going up very, very quickly. And I mean, they're nothing like they were 15 years ago, but we baked this into our business that we'd be able to borrow money at like nothing. And that's not the case anymore.
That's right. You have to, if you're going to live on a line of credit, every job you bid, you have to calculate up how much it's going to cost you in interest to live on your line of credit till the CO is issued and you're getting your retainage. And if you're a big commercial contractor, you might be getting retainage a year. We talked about this last time.
Absolutely. I see clients with 18 months retainage, right?
Yeah, it's insane. It's like this hospital never got its CO, and so the project's just dragging on and nobody's getting paid. And it just depends if you're the dirt guy or concrete guy. You're the first one on the job when the ground broke 5 years ago, and you're just waiting forever. And you think about that just compounding over job after job. Here's another way around that. And most big GCs know this, but they'll take a couple small jobs that'll go real fast. Subs will do it also. I'll see commercial concrete guys pour home slabs that are big, nice $1 million home slabs.
Don't make any sense financially for them to do it, but they do it for the cash.
For the cash. There's no retainage. It gets them through a tough spot. And so, I mean, that's one way to salvage, like, and save face. It's like, I'm going to make my payroll next month when I see, looking forward, my payroll is going to be tight because I'm
pouring a carport.
Deposit on a job pay application. It's sometimes these guys are getting paid cash for these kind of jobs, right? And they're doing them at a discount. But yeah, I mean, retainage.
Now, okay, so this gives me an idea. Can I lend people their retainage back and take a lien against their retainage? Can I say, can I factor it essentially?
You can. There are
people do
factor companies that
factor retainage. Yeah, because I'm like, hey, maybe I just got a great new business to do, because you're likely going to get paid, right? So you just charge interest on it. Okay, so retainage is typically about 10% of the project cost.
10%. You can negotiate it a lot of times to 5%, 7%. It's typically 10%.
And how, from a negotiation perspective, what are your characteristics that allow you to negotiate that? Retainage is held by the bank, I'm assuming, right?
Retainage is held by the GC or by the owner or then by the bank. So it goes of level.
But the GC might hold it. They just have it in an account that they legally aren't permitted to touch.
That's right. They're just legally.
Legally.
Get through. But I mean, when you work for the same people over and over again, so we see this a lot too. We'll see where a GC will work with the same sub over and over again, and they form a real relationship, and they know based on your financials. So they do these pre-qualification applications. So when you say, I'd like for you to keep 5% instead of 10%, and I'll let you see my financial statements, and I'll send you bank statements, and you can look at my balance sheet and my assets, and they see this person has money in the bank.
Okay.
I'm not going to lose my money if something happens to the retainers. They still have the money to pay me. They see you're profitable. That's an easy way for you to negotiate your retainage. Like you're legit.
Tell me again, how is retainage determined legally from is it the client that's saying you need to maintain this level of retainage?
Which is usually their attorneys saying we need to hold this back. It's a risk, right? And so it's like insurance, bonding, attorneys.
Oh yeah, totally.
All of that going into like this risk pool, saying like the standard across the industry is pretty much 10%.
Yeah. And listen, I remember back in the days with Build Proof, this was a challenge because one of the core reasons that we created the software, like essentially what happened is let's say it was a $10,000 project and you were the remodeler and I was the homeowner. The homeowner would put the money on account. and the contractor could see it. And then we would agree on, let's say, 25 triggers. The materials are delivered, granite's installed, slabs poured, all these things. Every time one of those was done, the GC would select, we finished the drywall. I would confirm that, and then that percentage would go into the GC's account, which was pretty cool. But one of the reasons that we were very successful in the short period of time that we existed before the crash was that when the job was complete, when everything was listed on there, all the money was taken out. So the homeowner couldn't hold back. And we had contractors tell us, look, we did this, $1 million addition for somebody. And at the end, the last $100,000, the guy's like, I'm not paying you unless you build me a new garage. And they're like, that's not part of the deal. And he's like, well, then I'm just not going to pay you the last piece. Take me to court. I'm going to, oh yeah, look, this light switch looks like it's off by 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to have an engineer come in and look at all this. And eventually you're just like, screw it, just put up the damn carport for the guy because I want my $100,000. But that was what we did, is we eliminated that, right? It couldn't happen. The contractors liked it because they were guaranteed to get paid if they did the work. And the homeowners liked it because they knew that they were going to get the work done. And the only people that didn't like it, oddly enough, the only people that didn't like it were usually ones that had contractors that if you looked up on the Better Business Bureau or the ROC, they were the ones that were always in trouble. Those are the guys that hated that system. But it was very similar to this, right? It was very similar to this. There was a guarantee that the job was going to get completed.
Yeah.
So retainage is a big deal. So negotiate retainage. What's from your experience, and you are been in construction for I don't want to say many years because you're not that old, but for years, your family's in construction. What's a successful negotiation look like? Because I think most general contractors think that 10% is the standard. So is that a proactive thing that you have to when you're doing your request for qualifications, you essentially say we're open to regular audits, or how do you do that? What do you do there?
I mean, I'd say this. First of all, look at your cash flow and your budget. If you're going to do 10% this year and they're holding back 10%, you're breaking even.
Yep.
It's being held. If you think you're only going to make 5%, you need the 5%, right? And so I'd say try to make a negotiation of, we'll send you annual financial statements. Doesn't really give them much of a promise, but quarterly would be good. And
Yep.
so you think about the bank when they loan you money. Banks hate to loan in construction, by the way, especially contractors. They hate it. But they'll make you send your AR and your AP so they can see where things are at. And that's usually a monthly request that we'll do for our clients. Just automatically send it to the bank to keep their line of credit good. And so we're just watching for their accounting team at these GCs. They're watching to see are their subs really going to stay in business, because they don't want to get 3 years down the road and there be a problem and they don't have a sub to warranty the job anymore either, right? So
I've had that happen. I mean, we've all had it happen where it's like you call and they're like, oh, we're no longer in business. And it's like, yeah, but I have a warranty. They're like, well, good luck. So that makes a lot of sense. I'm so glad that we talked about this. So retainage is a really important part of this. And then the other is this liens, and starting to think particularly about this as the market is shifting, as the fast cash, the availability to cheap cash is going away. Smart companies are starting to figure this out and think about it on the back end. I just talked about this in one of my other podcasts the other day. Right now is the time to negotiate. This is the time to get out and negotiate things, because for so long, all we've done is drank from the fire hose. And it's like, well, materials are up 5%. What can I do? They're up 5% last quarter too. Now's the time to start pushing things back down and starting to negotiate on things like these liens, things like retainage. That's going to be the difference between profitability and losses. And it potentially is the difference between you surviving and not surviving if we do get into a little bit of a downturn.
Yeah, I talked to another person in financial services this morning too, Derek, who said wages were up so much and we were seeing this great resignation, and she's seeing wages come back down in line, where people who bumped wages to keep people are going, our business can't afford to keep you. And people aren't paying those higher wages anymore when they're opening new positions.
Nope.
So it's right sizing itself back out.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give a little bit of insight into the marketplace here. We're currently working on 2 analysis for customers where we are looking at wages, because these are bigger employers. One hires about 50 people a month. And we're looking at week by week what our recruiters are offering as a wage. And we have found some very interesting anomalies where at the last 2 weeks of last year, wages increased by about 8% in their industry, and they never came back down. And now we're listening to the conversations with the recruiters, and we're realizing something. And that is that previously they were saying this role pays $23 an hour. Around Christmas last year, that's a hard time to hire. It's a hard time to get hired and a hard time to hire. So less people were looking for work. So the conversation from the recordings changed, and people started saying, well, what are you looking for? I'm looking for $26 an hour. So they gave it to them, but they never changed the conversation back in January. So they've been paying them 26 now all year long. And you can see it. Here's the employees that are at the 23. Here's where the shift happened. It's sustained at 26. And now we're starting to advise them. And guess what's happened the last 2 weeks? 25.50, 25.25. The wage curve is starting to come back down. The negotiation power is gone. And now we have to start questioning those people that we hired the last 2 weeks of the year and the first weeks of January. If they haven't churned yet, they're now making a significantly higher wage than everybody else. And we have to either sit back down with them and explain to them the market has changed, which is not going to go well. and you have to be careful because somebody's going to post on social media, my boss just came to me and took $2 an hour away from me, and people are going to be, but it's difficult. So, how do we do that? And there's lots of different techniques that I would never say on a podcast, but I can, if you want a consultation, I can tell you how to make somebody's life miserable so they leave. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? That is it's a real challenge. And when prices are changes, you have to make, conscious decisions, and you have to actively know what you're doing. Wages are now, I don't think wages are increasing anymore because of demand. I think wages are increasing right now because we expect wages to increase.
Right.
So we got to think about that. I love it. Ashley, this was great. Thank you so much. Awesome time. We're going to keep doing this every couple of weeks. And until next time, make sure you guys like and follow and do all that kind of stuff, and check us out at profitmatters.co. Talk to you soon.